to move forward as a country. And this comes on the heels of the SONA address. Professor Mary De Haas, very good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, everybody.
Lovely to have you on the show, and we've now just heard reports of an Eastern Cape ward councillor who was shot dead in his vehicle in Nelson Mandela Bay, and of course 1 or 2 other people traveling with him were injured in the incident as well. Why do we see this happening? A lot of this has happened in KZN as well, and how do we move forward as a country and try and protect and ensure that our councillors are not gunned down because possibly of a difference of ideologies, political ideologies?
Yeah, look, this has been going on for a long time, actually, this killing of councillors. It has increased, it seems, in recent years. I mean, in KZN, well, there's 2 factors, basically. The one is individual competition. This starts before elections when the potential candidates are competing, and you will get then maybe a sitting councillor who wants to keep his position or her position and potential candidates. So you may get attacks and killing to eliminate a competitor, put it that way. And then, of course, or then sometimes they may be targeted. I mean, in the case, for example, a few years ago, Sindika Bagasa, the KZN councillor exposed corruption. He was killed because of that. And that was an intra-party thing. Now, the other intra-party thing, of course, at the moment is the competition around factions in the ANC itself. And I mean, look, quite honestly, it's impossible to tell until there's a court case with certainty about the potential reason for the killing. Most of the killing of councillors is linked to either either the competition or the fact that they do their jobs too well and expose corruption, or in some cases it's inter-party. But that it's not nearly as prevalent as it was in the past. So the problem is, though, that often councillors also have businesses they run, especially taxis. So there could be a motive. That's what I talk about, motives. One has to look at this whole context. So it's until one knows the context in which the killing took place, the position of the councillor, was he or she, for example, in a particular faction, and is there an ongoing thing about factions in that area because of party elections? That's how complicated it is, if you get what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Mary, it's really troubling, is it not? Because linked to this, as you were talking about intra-party politics, about councillors having cushy jobs, about wanting to serve another term, and there's a whole host of other issues as well. They own businesses, so there seems to be lots of scores, settling of scores here as well. And sadly, in most instances, the perpetrators are not brought to book. You don't have enough evidence, etc., etc. So how do we move forward? That's the one question. Question from a viewer is, this year is the ANC's elective conference, as we all know. And the question being asked is, do you think these killings might have something to do with the upcoming elective conference in December?
Yeah, well, let me start with that. That is, as I tried to, maybe I touched on it or maybe I didn't, that is a potential reason. But again, one looks at the context. Who is the councillor? Where does he or she stand in party politics? Because it is not only, for example, ANC councillors that are getting killed. Some of the killings, but not most of them, are from members of other parties. For example, in KZN from the IFP or the NFP. But indeed, that could well be a reason. I mean, for example, in eThekwini at the moment, we have this ongoing thing between the supporters, the former dominant commissioner, the body of councillors, which was in the Zuma camp, and then newly elected councillors who are not necessarily in that camp. And that may feature. I mean, I'll give you an example quickly. That in a shack area right near a middle class area, there's a long-standing councillor against whom very serious allegations are made of involvement in crooked deals and things, and who's in the camp of what you might call loosely the Zuma camp. Right now, before the election, another candidate was canvassing, but was shot dead together with his companion, and then a by-election was held, and the old councillor is back in. Now, this may or may not be linked to these factions in the Tekwini Council, and they are linked to the factions in the ANC, and that, of course, plays a role with the upcoming party elections. Okay, but the other question is far more it's easy to answer, but it's difficult to get anything done about it. I mean, to deal with this, we need to do something about policing. It's not a lack of evidence. I mean, the point is, first of all, the general problem is, I don't think that the police are as well trained as they were, but that's a minor detail compared with police management. I mean, right now, I'm sitting here dealing with a crisis, or not right this moment, but this week, in policing in this country. I think people don't understand how deep that crisis goes. They think if you get rid of the National Commissioner, that's it. No, not at all. The whole national management, there needs to be a review of their appointments. What I'm seeing in different provinces, not just KZN, but for example, the Free State, national members of the police I'm interacting with that are trying to do something about corruption, irregular appointments. That there is a nepotistic network there, political appointments, the politicization of the police. We need, and Parliament is falling down in its duty, its oversight duty. In other words, what we actually need is a proper human resources audit of the police, and I don't know how we get it. But having said that, when it comes to detective work, for example, in KZN, we have some good detectives. But what the national government has done, and this is now just KZN, I don't know that it applies in other provinces, the national government has set up an interministerial task team to look at these political killings, because that's what we're talking about now. But that interministerial team is run by the Minister of Police. Now, if you are going to replace police management, if you replace the commission, it makes no difference, because basically the minister is running the police. I don't know if people know that. He is operational. He's not supposed to be. He runs this political task team. And I mean, some of the potential suspects are his own colleagues. And I mean, this is irregular. It's against the Police Act. And it's happening. And that task team even helps itself to other topics which are not even political. So the solution is the buck stops with the presidency, basically. The president shows no will. I mean, he wants this minister because it's a political ally from KZ. Okay, well, he must stop the operational interference by this minister, and he's not doing that. So whatever he does with the commissioner, the national commissioner, or anybody else is not going to make a difference unless he stops operational involvement, especially investigations. And I mean, this minister's also got links with intelligence people, and that makes it a farce that he didn't even call the army before the July.
Absolutely.
So it's basically the political will that we're lacking.
So basically what you're saying, and I was going to put the question to you regarding your thoughts on Sawana, but you've already preempted and answered a few of those thoughts of mine, is it seems as if our president has put party before country. How do we move forward? Because as we get closer to the elective conference, I mean, he's made lots of promises, SONA 2022, but we know many other promises were made over the past SONA addresses, but we haven't seen any implementation. And the situation in the country just seems to deepen, worsen. It's become pretty dire, has it not?
Look, I mean, it is very concerning, I think, the position at the moment. And I mean, this is typical politicians, of course. They always make these promises, and we have to hold them to account. The problem we have is the Parliament's not holding. The Parliament, I mean, if I look at the Policing Portfolio Committee, it's nowhere near as good as the last one we had, ironically. We just had a better, more proactive committee. Now, these Parliament committees should be overseeing all this, and they're failing in their job. Now, what I suggest to people, and I really would urge everybody, your listeners and everybody else, we have to, as people who are outside of politics, those of us who are outside of politics, we have to become much more involved in ground-up work, quite frankly. We have to engage with our local ratepayers or service delivery. We have to get organized to push. We're talking now just ordinary service delivery, because the people we elect as councillors aren't doing enough to make sure that the service delivery in municipalities. So we have to organize among ourselves in the old-fashioned ratepayers association. We need to learn the lobbying techniques that are used in mature democracy, Scandinavia, America, wherever, and not let our politicians get away with it. But I think one very important thing that people can do is to get involved in structures like community policing forums. Too often these are dominated by politicians. You know, I interact with a lot of police who take their oath of office seriously. They want to do their jobs, and they are thwarted by corrupt management. They don't get right now, and I want to draw attention to this. A circular went out a few months back from police management to say, right, if you are an administration person in police, you can apply to be transferred to do operational duty. Right. You get minimal training before you're transferred. Now, what I've got in this province, I'm hearing, and from the Free State, I've got names, is that people who are not properly trained police are moving to operational, and they are getting promoted ahead of police who are sitting as constables, sergeants, or even warrant officers for years and years and years. You can imagine what this does to police morale.
Scary, absolutely scary indeed. Unbelievable.
Because
Mary,
this is what I'm doing right now. I've already brought it up with Parliament. I didn't even get a response to that. I mean, this must not happen, because we have got to support good policing.
Okay.
You know, you can do that on a community police forum if you get to know. I mean, one man I know in Durban who's been on a community police forum for years, the guys trust him because he stands up for them when they do their work properly. During the last year's upheavals and the looting in July, at the station, which is in a suburban, middle-class suburb, he hears from police at the station that several dozen police are refusing to do anything because they support them. And they are intimidating their colleagues who are trying to work. Now, he knows that because he's trusted by good police, and he helps them. So I'm urging people, because you can't sit back and wait for government to act. We hope it will.
Okay. Professor,
get involved.
I'm going to have to leave it there, but you've left us with a very, very scary scenario. But hopefully it will put fire under our feet as citizens to start becoming proactive within our communities, ratepayers associations, policing forums, etc. So thank you indeed. Until the next time, go well. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, and go for it, everybody. Right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That was Professor Mary De Haas, KZN Violence Monitor, talking about councillor killings in the country and just giving us a scenario of what's happening in our communities. Guys, it is imperative that we become proactive. Let's start taking a stance and making ourselves and our communities, be counted, and let this country not be captured even further. 8:54 News and Views right here on Salam Media.